He was once a king. Diddy's empire was built on money, fame, and fear. He conducted lives like a maestro, orchestrating a never-ending symphony of producers, models, bodyguards, managers, sound engineers, and journalists. He was everywhere, on magazine covers, at the top of the charts, in every headline. But then, one by one, without shouting, without a single shot, people began to emerge from the shadows. Women, 5 women, and each of them carried a piece of the truth he had spent years hiding. It wasn't an explosion, but a deep rumble inside the silence. What brought his empire crashing down had no weapons, only memory and the power to say, "I won't be silent anymore." The first was Cassie Ventura. A vision in silk once called him the universe of her life. And he believed it, or wanted to. She was young, beautiful, obedient, just as show business demands of a woman standing beside a man twice her age. They were seen as the perfect couple, the powerful mogul and the rising star. Her voice, her style, her silence, all packaged and sold to the world as love. But no one saw what the cameras didn't. What happened after the flashes, after the champagne, after the galas. Behind closed doors, silence thickened. Pain wore Versace packaging. For 11 years, Cassie played the part, or maybe she lived it, until she simply couldn't anymore. In November of 2023, she walked into an FBI office. No tears, no hesitation, just 4 words. "I have the evidence." 72 hours later came the arrest no one saw coming. Miami. Federal agents placed handcuffs on Sean Combs, the man America knew as Diddy. 3 charges, each like a blow to the chest. Transporting women across state lines for sexual exploitation, running a coerced network of sexual relationships, destroying evidence and surveilling witnesses. And it all began with the woman who once held his hand in front of millions. But now, in her hands were no flowers, only flash drives, documents, audio recordings. For 3 years, Cassie had been quietly building a case. Patiently, as if she always knew the day of reckoning would come. One of the attorneys put it simply: she became the weapon he never anticipated. That's how a throne built on silence collapses. That's how truth is spoken when everyone believes it's too late. That's how one woman sparks a chain reaction that cannot be stopped. But Cassie is only the first. And this story, it seems, is far from over. She entered his life like a dance, wild, electric, untamed. And like a dance, she vanished, just as suddenly as she appeared. Jennifer Lopez wasn't just another love interest in Sean Diddy Combs' life. She was the one woman he could never buy. But this story begins elsewhere, with another woman, one whose silence lasted far too long, until it shattered into a scream. Cassie. The woman who unleashed a storm. Her confession cut through the music industry like a blade, sharp enough to split apart not only the empire he'd carefully built, but the illusion of invincibility that surrounded one of its most powerful figures. Cassie didn't speak of glamorous parties. She spoke of silence, of rooms without windows, of unnamed pills, of meetings where guests surrendered their phones not at a reception desk, but into biometric safes, of the roles she was assigned: seduce, entertain, stay quiet. She's no longer a victim, she's a witness. And her voice became the spark that collapsed the bad boy empire in a single winter. When Diddy, isolated in detention, learned that it was Cassie who had handed over the infamous hard drive to investigators, he reportedly shouted, "I slept with her for more than 10 years. And all this time I was hugging a bomb." Was her act betrayal or bravery? Manipulation or liberation? Everyone has their own answer. But one thing is clear: you can't look away anymore. Kim Porter, the woman who spoke only after death if Cassie was the fire that scorched the backstage curtain. Kim Porter was Pandora's box. And in February of 2024, that box was opened. Her death in 2018 was labeled a tragedy. The diagnosis: acute pneumonia. A grand funeral. Diddy's public tears. Condolences from hundreds of celebrities. It looked like the somber end to a love story. But beneath the grief, a secret was buried. One the FBI would take 5 years to uncover. In Kim's home, behind a long-forgotten wall, her sister found a safe. Inside, 3 black flash drives and 300 pages of documents. No one would have guessed that the quiet, loyal woman had been archiving enough to shake the ground beneath a media empire. The first video was blurry, faces unclear, but the voice instantly recognizable. Diddy's laughter, a girl's whisper, "You said it was a birthday, Diddy," and the click of a door locking from the outside. 16 minutes. The FBI later called it circumstantial, but compelling evidence of unlawful imprisonment and psychological coercion. The next files? Schedules of exclusive parties at a mansion in Hidden Hills. Names, times, notes on the women's conditions. At least 4 of them later ended up in hospitals. None ever spoke. Fear, money, or both sealed their silence. Kim Porter didn't scream. She documented, carefully, patiently, and now, from beyond the grave, her voice is the loudest of them all. When Diddy heard about the discovery, he reportedly scoffed during interrogation and muttered, "I should have burned that safe back in 2018. They're now calling it the dead woman's dossier, but its impact weighs as heavily as dozens of living testimonies. Still think it was just a tragic love story? I don't. This isn't the end. It's the beginning." Jennifer Lopez. The one he couldn't control, she shined beside him, and the world seemed to move in rhythm with their shared momentum. But Lopez was never one to follow. When the scandal broke, she didn't retreat into silence. She didn't make backroom deals, and she certainly wasn't afraid of losing her image. Her eyes showed no fear, just fatigue. She knew exactly where the game ended, and she walked away while it was still her choice to make. Not everyone had that luxury. In the early 2000s, they were hailed as the king and queen of New York. She was Jennifer Lopez, a dazzling star, singer, actress, and dancer, the embodiment of a dream shaped by Latin roots and relentless American drive. He was Sean Diddy Combs, music industry mogul, a man with an instinct for turning beats into gold and fame into an empire. Together, they seemed untouchable. Red carpet royalty, paparazzi darlings, dancing through nights that felt endless, until one night changed everything. It was December of 1999, a nightclub in Manhattan. The music was thumping, champagne flowing, when suddenly, gunshots rang out. Chaos erupted. Screams, panic. Police stormed in. Hours later, headlines blared across every front page. Jennifer Lopez and Diddy arrested. Reporters camped outside the station for days. Soon, Jennifer was released. He was not. Charges, investigation, and the abrupt end of their romance. They never spoke again. 2 decades passed. Somewhere deep in an FBI archive, that night gathered dust, until new technologies cracked the encryption once thought unbreakable. Among the recovered files, a forgotten tape. A recording made during Jennifer's first police interrogation, never presented in court. Her voice is trembling, raw, sincere. "I didn't know he had a gun. I didn't know he meant to scare anyone. I was there because I trusted him. If it means I won't be charged, I'll tell you everything. Even the things you didn't ask." The tape remained buried for 25 years. Then, in 2025, the case was reopened, not for the nightclub shooting, but for something darker. What once looked like wild parties now pointed to a calculated web of power, silence, and exploitation. And once again, the FBI turned to Jennifer. But this time, she did not remain silent. According to leaked reports, she handed over her private journals. In them were entries detailing exclusive gatherings, young actresses, models, hidden cameras. One of the names mentioned matched a woman who filed a lawsuit against Diddy in 2023. Jennifer was no longer seen as just the ex. She became anonymous key witness number 7, the one who helped map out an entire system of seduction, manipulation, and abuse. When Diddy learned that Lopez was cooperating with investigators, he allegedly slammed his fist on a table during a meeting with his legal team and shouted, "I gave her that career. She stepped over my body to survive." By then, 3 women had already come forward. His world was crumbling. But one more voice was waiting. A woman he had forgotten. Someone he saw as just a dancer. Lorian Gibson, the woman who knew everything. Because, as she later said, he thought I was just dancing, but I was surviving. A story that began like a glittering Manhattan fairy tale ended as a haunting chronicle of power, betrayal, and female resilience. And when her voice, once shaking with fear, finally echoed out of the silence, it wasn't just a testimony. It was a reckoning. In the early 2000s, anyone remotely connected to the world of dance or show business knew her name. Lorian Gibson was fire in motion and steel in voice. She didn't just choreograph. She built an empire of rhythm, body, and pain. Her work pulsed through the music videos of Lady Gaga, Nicki Minaj, and Beyoncé.